Mikey,
What
wake up,
now?
Mikey.
What have I done?
We're back.
That must be New York Vinnie from Seattle, Washington, there, as I see him on my screen.
And I'm going to bet you that that's Michael Knight down in Pasadena, California. Together, we are Mikey and Vinnie. Michael Knight in New York, Vinnie. We've been doing this for, well, I don't know how many years we've been doing it. Michael, 30 years? No, more than that, because we really started back in 86, right?
And
87?
even considering
86?
all the hours we've done on the air and on the screen and on the media platforms, we have never, each of us, had to separately hire lawyers to defend ourselves against charges from the federal government. And I'm sure that's coming. But to date, we don't hire lawyers to get through the day like some people do.
Well, except for a short period around 1967 or 68, which was well before I knew you. Um, I don't think I ever tried to. Well, I know I didn't plot to overthrow the government. I may have advocated um, an overthrow of the Johnson administration because I had friends that were coming back in boxes.
I got a lot of mail from Lyndon Johnson that I didn't exactly enjoy opening.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. Nothing compared to this.
I'm
I mean,
afraid not.
that was small. That was small beans. I mean, that was nothing compared to what we're watching on our television screens now. I mean, it's pathetic.
And it's interesting phrase you use, small beans. I was thinking of the phrase small potatoes when you said it, because despite the danger that Donald Trump represents to mankind, despite the evil nature of this guy and all the people who love him, he's small potatoes. He's Donnie from Queens, who tried to pull something off that was way beyond his ability. He tried with all his heart to bring some of the spiders, the dark spiders that love him, along with him. And the only ones that came were the craziest of them all. Even the Republican lawyers, and when I say Republican lawyer, I mean God knows what you're going to get if you hire a Republican lawyer. I don't know what sort of advice you're going to get. I don't know what
Well,
kind
I
of trial.
actually haven't had a Republican lawyer. He's not like, I mean, I haven't used him in a long time, but I actually had a guy um, here locally that was a Republican and it was a lawyer, and I used him in a case that I had years and years and years and years ago with a landlord dispute, and he wound up costing me more money than I would have had to pay if I just paid it.
Did he advise you at any time to follow him into the breach and break the laws that he was sworn to
No, as a
uphold?
matter of fact, he was a staunch advocate of following the law, so I'll give him that credit. Um, but he,
Well,
you know,
I salute him as being a rare breed.
well, at that time he wasn't though. At that time, the Republicans were quite different. What we see from Republicans now is much different. Any of us that have been around the political arena for any amount of time will tell you that it's much different than it was 10 years ago.
We heard a lot of numbers and conclusions and prognostications and predictions yesterday. But one of the things that I heard was that in the latest polling, which is going on because there's so many people running for the presidency right now, Republicans who support Donald Trump and know that he's a criminal and admit that he has broken crimes, 29% still support him for the presidency,
Yeah.
despite the fact that he cannot be trusted to uphold any law.
I just don't know how you, in good conscience, could support this guy. Could I mean, I couldn't figure it out before, but I understood it. I understood that there is a large number of people out there that are frustrated, that are feeling like they're not being heard, that are feeling like this country has slipped away from them. I get that. I realize that. I'm among them in many ways. And there's also a renewed vigor to things like racism and anti-immigration. It's not just here; it's around the world. It's not just happening here in America. It's happening all over the place.
But it is happening here in America in a big way, supported by the president.
Right. And it's one thing when it's supported by a bunch of psychos that live in Idaho. But when you have the president of the United States supporting it, when you have somebody who is supposed to be a leader, somebody who is supposed to protect and uphold the Constitution, when that guy is out trying to figure out ways to circumvent the Constitution, when that guy is out trying to figure out ways to get around the law, which if you understand, and I know I go back and I lean on this a lot, but it's so true. If you understand the way things work in New York, you understand Donald Trump. You understand that that 50% of the purpose of any businessman in New York is trying to figure out how to get around some of the rules, not to comply with them, but to get around them.
And we'll take your apology later, Idaho, and you can work
Right.
it in.
You know,
But you know what?
What's that famous thing? It's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission.
Never ask for permission. Just beg for forgiveness after you've done it.
Right.
And you're right, Vinnie. Many lawyers yesterday were talking about the fact that they're dealing with this strange rationale, this Trump reality. People are not just voting for him or believing him or saying, yeah, I think he's right about a few things. They're saying that God sent him. Now, I know I've had trouble with this concept before, but he's got the evangelical vote in his pocket. He uses it like currency. And Vinnie, these people have come to the conclusion that God, on some jag that we can't get him off of, sent Donald Trump to save us all, to put things right, to put things straight, to put things correctly. And how they can observe the daily goings on in the world as they are enjoined by Donald Trump, and still believe that means that how can they believe any of the complicated stuff in the Bible if they can't see one simple con man? It's just a con
delivered
man.
to them something that they could not, that nobody else could. He delivered to them the elimination of Roe versus Wade.
That was a tough one at the trading deadline, wasn't it? He just squeaked that one across.
Yeah, that is one that they had been trying for since 1971 or 72, since it was, since it came down, and try as they might, they could never quite get there. Donald Trump told them,
I know how.
Get in bed with me, I'll get you there. I know how to get you there. And he did. He had enough animals around him that knew how to operate in the jungle.
And he had the votes. He couldn't pass legislation, but he did pass the approval of judges.
Right. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know whether these people should be or shouldn't be Supreme Court justices.
Yes, you are.
But it seemed to me that each one of the ones that he got approved seemed to have a strong anti-liberal, anti-abortion, anti-freedom type of tilt to them. That
the type
really
of judge
kind of says to me that if this case that he is indicted on ever would have got to the Supreme Court, that we might be living under President Trump today.
They're trying to get. They're thinking of a future where every motion that these defense attorneys make may go to the Supreme Court.
Well, I think, Mikey, that we're dealing with a multiple pronged problem here. We're dealing with a guy. First of all, it's a slick huckster, and don't let anybody tell you that he's not. He may appear stupid. His fault is not stupidity. His fault is that he can't keep his mouth shut.
His fault is his ego will be the end of him.
Right. He will be studied as a prototypical case of what an ego can do to you, how it can ruin um, or get in the way of your plans.
This is going to take some time, students, but we're going to study about this man and find out what's wrong with him.
And you're
And I
going to
know
throw
that's
up along the way.
it sounds simple. It sounds simple, but it ain't going to be simple.
And so we have that. Then we have the cult aspect of it, where we have so many people out there that are looking for something to grab onto
While they're fearful and angry.
while they're being told that a black man is coming for your job, a black man is coming for your house, a Latino man is coming for your daughter,
And
you
your
know,
gun. They're coming for your gun, too.
and they're
Don't
coming
forget.
for your guns. And, between that and the the sense that nobody wants to stand up to this guy, save for a couple of people.
Chris Christie.
I listen. I'm not a big Chris Christie fan,
But he's got it. He's got the
but
idea.
he's got the right idea. Is that this can? And I believe that his motives are somewhat pure. I mean, he's no angel. Don't get me wrong. And
But he's a Jersey guy, so
but yeah, but he has been the only one willing to stand up on a stage, stand in front of a TV camera, and knock Donald Trump down, except for Liz Cheney. And I got to tell you that a Christie Cheney ticket in 2024 would be I think, a formidable ticket. You could call them heroes because Liz Cheney did, Liz Cheney did what Chris Christie in Congress, what Chris Christie is doing now out in the field, out in the electorate. He is exposing Donald Trump for what he is. The problem is you have so many people that don't want to believe that their hero is an antichrist.
that's exactly what he is. Plus, he's a bit of a fuller brush salesman to the point where you really don't want to open the door. You don't want to hear another message from this guy. You don't want to hear another bright idea. And what remains in his quiver, Vinnie, although most of his problems are being tied up now in a legal sense, it's going to keep him from flexing his muscles too much. He's got to run for president while he's defending himself, and that's going to be an increasingly difficult thing to do. But the thing that we watch about Trump right now is he's only got one of his major weapons left, and that is violence. And I don't want to see that, and I don't want to call that, I don't want to predict that. But if he gets in a tight spot, if he gets in a pickle, that's exactly what he thinks about. How can the crowd burn this courtroom down and kill the judge? That would be such a great thing if they could do it, because I would say that's really the wrong thing to do. I guess my trial's over. I wish we could have gotten to the end of it. I wonder what they would have thought. But the jury's dead. That's very interesting.
Well, Michael, he is Trump. That is the you do a study of any mob boss,
Yeah.
In the past 100 years, and you'll get his playbook. His playbook is nothing new. It's just that it's never been done at the level that he's doing it.
And it's remarkable how often, no matter what Donald Trump says, what is the reality is almost exactly the opposite every single time. And there's another guy that does that. Watch them for it, and that's Vladimir Putin. When Vladimir Putin says the Giants beat the Dodgers, you can for certain know the Dodgers shut out the Giants 9-0.
Right.
And where he got his information is anybody's guess.
And I many times we've talked about this over the past 3 years that we're doing this show, 3.5 years that we're doing this show. We've talked about it before. I've talked about it with other people. Is I don't know if it's brainwashing. I don't know if it's repeated exposure on all the different news shows. I mean, how do you not cover them? But how do you cover them? I mean, you can't just not cover him.
What I saw was that one of his lawyers got out and was talking on CNN. He did this morning show with Savannah Guthrie. They got into a bit of a tangle. Covering the news is going to be more nuanced now, because just putting on somebody who's mad about Donald Trump being in custody is not covering the news. That's not getting an opinion. That's not solving the balance of information in terms of the fairness doctrine. Get somebody who knows what they're talking about. Get someone who's an authority. Pay them and keep them around. Don't just bring in a screaming attorney every time you need somebody to make it appear that you're balancing the coverage. Or do it like Fox and just make up the story and have your own people underline it and endorse it, and you're done.
That
And
would
you
be a
pay
way to
them.
go. That would be a way to go. I think that people are, well, here's the thing, Mikey. You have so many people who are disenchanted with, they see their world melting away. They see the world that they thought they lived in not the same anymore, whether it's crime, whether it's gay rights, whether it's, interracial, whatever it is that people believe in on that right side of the spectrum.
Maybe that the weather thing is a hoax, so it's not really hot.
They see that it's melting away. We see, television now feeds us a steady diet of interracial couples and commercials on TV. Um, we're we're told that, or not, we're told, but the right, every time there's an ordinance or something that comes out that champions gay rights, we're told that it's taking rights away from.
Because we've only got 6 rights per person.
Right. It's that you have like this finite number of rights.
That's
So
true.
their case to get you excited is that, well, look at what's going on with these sick people.
They're taking away your rights, your money, your future,
And giving it to them.
and they're putting you in danger of what? Of everything. Pick anything that you're afraid of. In fact, let's go through the list and get everything that you're afraid of on the list, because that's what you're going to be dealing with. That's why you're angry. That's why you're fearful. That's why you're going to vote for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump actually has come to the conclusion that he is the only one who can
Right.
change things.
He has fed you that line for years and years and years, and you have believed it, and
Yeah.
and you think that he is, if you're weak of mind and don't know that he is the dastardly entity that he is, it's easy to believe. And if you
He's a
hang
bad.
out with a lot of other, 60-year-old guys who feel like that they've been screwed their entire life because of affirmative action, because of women's rights, because of gay rights, because that people that they perceive to be lesser than them.
Why can't things be like they used to be?
Right. Why can't I smack my wife if I get into an argument with her? How come the police have to come to my house and drag me out? It used to be if I smacked my wife, the cop would come, he'd take me out of the house, he'd drive me around a block, and that was it.
It was beautiful. We had an understanding.
We had an understanding, and that understanding isn't there anymore.
Neither is his wife, I'll bet.
Right. Probably the wife was gone too. He either killed her or she got smart and took off. But you wind up in this situation where you have all of these people that just feel like the thing is coming apart at the seams.
But you know what? How we feel about things used to drive us to vote, used to drive us to demonstrate, used to drive us to take some political action, like in a democracy.
Right.
But now how we feel gives us the right to be disruptive, to take racist positions, to support radical candidates, to fund white supremacist organizations posing as Proud Boys. And it's always been in our nature, Vinnie, as Americans, to know what the right thing is, but to do the wrong thing to a certain degree and put that extra twist on it at the end.
Right. I agree with
And
you 100%.
we don't have that luxury anymore. We can't afford another civil war. Things are going to be tough enough during this trial. And that's why it has to be televised so you can watch your man in action. You may think that you got a great team, but when you're watching baseball and your team can't get a hit, it becomes obvious by here. All my analogies are baseball analogies today. If your team still looks weak in the fifth inning, you know the game is going to go 9 innings, but you can see the writing on the wall. You see what's happening. And you see that they've got a better team than they did last year, but they still can't hit the ball with people in scoring position. And you know that Trump's been through so many good attorneys who are now representing baseball players that he's only got a few screamers left. And they're going up against a pretty good crew from what we've been able to see. And that means where it really counts in court before the judge, Trump's team is not going to be able to get base hits. Trump's team's not going to be able to score runs. Trump's team's not going to be aggressive and get away with it because in that game, the good lawyer with the evidence wins every time, every damn time. There's no miracle finishes.
And I truly have to believe, I honestly have to believe. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, I heard somebody on yesterday blaming Merrick Garland because the attorney general, because it took them so long to prosecute him. You don't indict the former president of the United States by looking at, a couple of pieces of paper.
No,
I mean, if you do that, you better be right.
You're not going to court. You're going right into history with this.
Yeah. This is bigger than court. This is history book stuff. This is 100 years from now they'll look at this and this will be like we look at Watergate now,
And someone
except
from now,
darker.
and 100 years from now, someone from Arkansas will say the Civil War was not about race. It was just about getting our states' rights.
Right.
Don't confuse the two. It was never about race. We knew the Negroes were going to be freed. We just thought that we'd work them to death before they got free.
Now, one thing that made me feel good yesterday, it was so odd that all of this happened yesterday, is it was election day up here. Primary election day, and I went down. I'm one of those people that love to go vote in person.
This is just for the city or the county or the state or
a state election. Although the offices that were up were primarily, it's an off year, so it was mayor of Edmonds, a county council person for Snohomish County. I don't know, water board people, not water board people, but Waterworks Commission. That
same thing.
Edmonds doesn't have somebody who's an expert in waterboarding. I don't think. Maybe we do, and I haven't met them yet.
I'll get you a guy I know a guy if you really want to know.
I know a couple of guys too that can do wonderful things with a drip.
All you need is a bucket and a towel and a
blindfold.
That'll do.
Yeah, that'll take care of it. But it was one of those elections that most people probably wouldn't even pay attention to. I'm sure if you look down their voting record, you'll see that the off-year election is one that not many people participate. But when I got out of my car yesterday to go to the ballot box, which is how you vote now, they send you a ballot and you check it off and you go to the ballot box. There were literally tens of people walking to the ballot box on a beautiful evening and putting their ballots in the ballot box.
See, it's brought out some good in us, hasn't it?
And I took that as a sign that, maybe, I'm not going to say it's not as bad as we think it is, because I think it is as bad as we think it is. I think we're in a place in this country where this could go either way and pretty quickly. But to see people out of all ages, older people, younger people, women, men, and walking down to that box to put their ballot in an off election year made me feel, because there was nothing compelling really to vote on,
Well, but I guess there
but
was.
everything is compelling these days. It
Yes.
all matters. And maybe people are starting to get that. Now
It
that maybe
always,
that's something that's always happened here in Edmonds. I don't know. I've only been here 3 years.
well, off-year elections are traditionally the American way is not a very exciting way. It's like
Right,
you stay
right.
home.
But it an off-year election is how so many of these different offices that are now become important because they're places that the Republicans have decided we got to get somebody in that board of elections. We got to get somebody in that water thing. We got to get somebody in that public works department. We got to, we have to. The only way we're ever going to be able to do something like we want to do, which is to steal an election, is to have our people there.
And we're going to need a ex-wrestling coach from Ohio State too, who wears short sleeve shirts. I don't know, can't remember his name, but you'll know him when you see him. We got to have him on the team. I tell you, he's an integral part of our idea.
Yeah, because matter of fact, we're thinking of trying to spring Jerry Sandusky out of jail to help out.
Good idea. He's a great stump speaker.
Yeah, really. He's persuasive, especially among the young people.
They listen and they know that he's telling them the truth.
So so these offices now, these elections, all elections are important.
But
It's not
Vinny,
important just to vote, though. It's important to really to look at who you're voting for and know a little bit about their background, which is virtually impossible. Because if I'm voting for Mike Nelson for mayor of Edmonds, I don't really know what Mike Nelson is. I know I know that Edmonds runs smooth. Seems like there are improvements happening all over the place, and Mike Nelson is running things.
did they have any problems with Rapture of the Deep?
No, no, and listen, he has the same name as our hero in Sea Hunt.
Yes, he does.
So I'll vote. Like I pick racehorses on names, I'll pick a politician on names. No, but seriously, but I took the time to go down the ballot and look at who was running, and at least there's a couple of websites that you can go on and look at who contributes to these people, what their background is. If you see some pack out of Florida,
Or foreign-born George Soros.
or somebody contributing to these people, chances are it bears a little bit more investigation. Now, I'm an older guy. I got a few minutes to do that. If you got 3 kids and you got to get them to this school and that school and the other school, maybe you don't have the time to do that, or it's low on your priority list.
You can mail it in, can't you?
Yeah, you can also mail it in. So
Anybody can do that.
it's incumbent upon people now to also take a look at who they're voting for. And it's important to
And
be
also to
active.
feel some shame for not voting in the past.
Yeah.
It's not a badge of courage. It is a shameful admission that we can't get you interested in running your own community, country, state, and nation.
Well, Mikey, listen, I'm somebody who's missed a few elections along the way. And sometimes it's not interest. Sometimes it's just that especially in the old days where you had to go to the poll, it could be tough at times. You're working, you got this, you got kids, you got a million things going on. Sometimes people just forget it's election day. That's why it's always a good thing in New York, like they do in New York, or they used to. I don't think they do it anymore. They used to close the bars on election day.
Now hold on.
That got your attention. If you couldn't get a double bourbon on a day, you ran down to the local public school and saw if the machines were up or not.
You couldn't get a Manhattan in Manhattan.
I think they may have changed that law since I was a kid, but on election day, schools, public offices, and bars were all closed.
Well, now you can get a drink at a school, but it costs you twice as what it used to on
Yeah, and
election
then you
day
could go
only.
get fentanyl in a school. So I don't know, Mikey. I
Well,
think the answer.
when Roe v. Wade went down, the Democrats said this issue on its own will bring us enough people, disgruntled and otherwise, to win the next election. And they have to remember that with the Joe Biden economy improving, that with the fact that Donald Trump is going to be in his court cases, all of them in some form or another, they've changed so fast and the list is so long already that we have to continue to believe that it will move at this pace. Things will keep changing, dates will change, presentations and motions will be entertained at different times. But I think it's going to move pretty quickly. And from what we know about the judge in D.C., that's the case that could go first, with the one in Florida lagging behind. But then again, Vinnie, that could change. So what we're seeing is issues arising and events paralleling those issues that say, if you want to vote for Republican, you have to vote against women's rights. If you want to vote for Republican, you have to ultimately be endorsing Donald Trump for whatever nastiness he has in mind, for the promise that he's going to take office again and do a scorched earth policy with the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation and Homeland Security, weaken those to the point they can't catch him anymore, because he's going to continue to double down on all of his misdeeds and ugly doings. Well, let's just remember that those facts are probably there. That the feelings about Trump, the Roe v. Wade, and the economic situation of the country should be enough for Biden to win the election. Doesn't mean it won't be tight, but the fact is, with those on your side as issues, if you can't beat Donald Trump on those, then you'll never beat him with anything. He's been indicted. He and the people that he put in place have done terrible things. There are criminals supporting him that are around him that are co-conspirators that'll be dealt with later. And it's got to be televised so that everyone can see the action on a daily basis. Better than OJ. Televise the whole damn thing and make sure that the nation takes part as like a social studies class in how it's done and how it's concluded and how it's conducted and why. And if you want to know any more whys, then get out your law books or Google it on your computer. Do something useful to find out why a motion takes so long, to find out why it has to be written in a certain way, to find out why you have to bring case law into the motion to justify the fact, I want to do it on a Tuesday, and here's why. In these cases that I'm notifying the judge of, they did everything on Tuesday, and it worked out for them in another way, and it worked out for them, blah, blah, blah. And I want the same consideration. You can't just say, I want a different parking spot, and the chairs here are not comfortable. No, you got to write a motion about your parking and a separate motion about the chairs. And they have to call on case law, and they have to be beautifully crafted and read those things. In fact, everyone should read the indictment. It's only 45 pages. And it's very direct, and you don't have to have gone to law school to understand what they're doing. And the fact that judges and other attorneys are calling it a tight case, and not just that one, but the Mar-a-Lago case too. They got all the evidence that they need, and they got the people to do it. And who's going to testify doesn't matter. Somebody's going to break out of the 5 that we have listed. Those facts that Smith has aligned a powerful team against Trump. And Trump's got the bargain basement lawyers, scrambling for a screaming date on the Today Show instead of doing their work, Vinnie, because Smith has been doing his work. He's got that thing written. He's got the motions done. He's got the indictment beautifully crafted. And not one person said, I've read this thing and it's a piece of crap. How are you going to convict the president of the United States with this kind of charge? No, they've all said precisely the opposite. I've read the indictment, and I don't think he's got a chance in hell to get out of it.
Trump is in trouble. Yeah,
I
think you're exactly right. I think this thing was crafted in a way And it's funny because his people, Trump's people, are out this morning and last night trying to say it's trying to paint it as a free speech issue,
No,
which is the furthest thing from the truth. It's not a free speech issue. Nobody's arguing and saying that he was liable or wrong for standing up and telling people to march down to the Capitol.
no, it's not even mentioned.
Not even mentioned. What people are saying is that he was the head of a machine that was put in place to falsify an election, to override the
The
votes
will.
of the American
Yeah.
people. And if it was Hillary Clinton doing the same thing, I would be just as pissed off as Hillary Clinton
Oh,
as
sure.
as I am at Donald Trump. Now, I don't like Donald Trump. Haven't liked Donald Trump for since I was young enough to know who he was, because you knew what he was. His I don't know if you heard the story. His campaign held a rally this weekend in Erie, Pennsylvania. I don't know how many people showed up to the rally. The rally almost didn't happen because Trump and his campaign owed $35,000 to the city of Erie for a rally they held there in 2018.
I will
That
gladly pay you today for a rally on Tuesday.
right, that after repeated requests by the city and letters and so much more, was just
Don,
poo-pooed by the Trump campaign.
Donnie from Queens at work.
Right. So the mayor of Erie, who I believe is a Republican, I may be wrong, but I think the mayor of Erie is a Republican, um, said to the Trump campaign on Thursday that there is no rally unless this bill is paid by Friday. We will revoke your permits. We will bar you from using whatever facilities you want to use.
I didn't hear this one. That's a good story.
Yeah. And I guess finally at some point on Friday, the bill got paid. But that's Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
He will try to screw anybody he possibly can out of any dollar amount he possibly can. Look at the two people that are going to take the fall with him in the Mar-a-Lago case. It's
Two,
not Giuliani and Jared Kushner. It's some ex-serviceman who hands him his Diet Cokes, and the freaking maintenance guy
who used to hand me his Coke.
who is the pool boy at Mar-a-Lago.
Hey, they got that pool. It's open 24 hours a day. Here's the deal. It's a kind of swimming pool where people can swim in it. It's completely special. You've never seen anything like it. There's nothing on the
It's
planet
the
like this
perfect
pool.
swimming pool. Perfect.
It is an extraordinary swimming pool, and people actually can swim in it, except it's closed for servicing right now. So, not really.
And but these are the people who are taking the fall. These are the people who, throughout Donald Trump's career, have taken the heat, have taken the fall, have taken the grief that he puts out there. It's not Giuliani, it's not Miller, it's not Meadows, it's not any of these people.
Mr. Meadows appears to have had a word or two to say to the investigation. We thought
Well,
he might.
I will tell you that, and I think you know this, that I think that he's been the guy that's been feeding them all the information since early on. I mean, I think he's the guy they flipped. Um, I just just looking at him and looking at what his actions have been since this all happened. Um, I mean, Mark Meadows is a guy who, at some point, figured it's better for me to save my ass because there's no future with Donald Trump.
When Trump was putting together his money to build that wall, he gave $1 million to Mark Meadows, as he was leaving at the end of the administration, which was
Yeah.
just like it was a tip. Of course, it wasn't Trump's money, but it was $1 million down payment on Mr. Meadows making himself scarce. Go
Well,
away, relax, don't answer the phone.
yeah, go. But the federal government has a certain way of persuading you, even though you have $1 million in your hand. And
They
what
found
also Trump is finding out is that politicians are not stand-up guys for the most part.
no.
I mean, Trump is used to dealing with guys and women, but guys mostly that are stand-up guys. That if you have been it has been ingrained in you that you don't talk to the police, you don't talk to the Justice Department, you don't talk to anybody. You tell them you don't know nothing.
And that's your story, and you just stick to it, period.
And that's your story, and you stick to it, and you get yourself a good lawyer, and a good lawyer should be able to get you out of it. In Trump's case, he's not dealing with Johnny Rocco, the concrete guy from Red Hook. He's dealing with Mitch McConnell, or he's dealing with all of these different guys that at some point are going to turn on him.
It's a modern mob. It's not the old mob. It's a modern mob. You don't know who's
Right.
your friend.
He's dealing with Mike Pence, who, say what you want about Mike Pence, and believe me, there's a lot to say, at least had the nerve and the balls not to get involved with this.
Well,
At what must have been a pretty scary thing that was going on.
because they were setting him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. He was going to be the one to go down for it. He had to be the integral part. He had to stand up and say, "Hold on, these proceedings are in recess until we can get this thing straightened out. I'm sending all the boats back to the States." And Mike, you don't have the right to do that. That's right. Never mind. I didn't say anything. What did I say? I said nothing.
Right.
No.
And at least he had, like I said, say what you want about him. I'm no fan of his either. But again, he had at least he found enough courage or enough of the sense of doing what the right thing was, as opposed to maybe he had just had enough.
Well, for a preacher man, it took him a long time to find Jesus on this one, I'll tell you. It took him a long time to come around.
And I don't know that he's found Jesus quite yet on it. I mean, I know that if a guy threatened my family the way Trump threatened his family, it wouldn't be on television.
And Vinnie, it wasn't just a threat. We know now that on that day, on January 6th, Mike Pence's Secret Service detail were told through the rumor mill that they were like persona non grata. They weren't really Secret Service anymore. They were just private guards until we could figure out what to do with them and Mike Pence and all the other people who wouldn't go along with the revolution. Remember, the military never showed up. Remember, there was nobody calling anybody to help. Mike Pence called those people from the loading dock.
Nancy Pelosi also called those people
and gave them their orders, because the federal government was not going to do a thing to save Mike Pence, who was there with his family, with his wife. They were running on the stairs, and they had no idea they were going to get out of that. They had no idea they were going to get back that night to actually finish their business. And Trump knew that, and Pence will never forget that. And he will not admit it to this day that he was scared shitless, and for good reason, and that they were coming for him. And that
everybody in that building had to be scared shitless. I mean, everybody in that building. These people were in there with the intent that this was a mob. This wasn't a bunch of people. This was Fidel Castro and his revolutionaries walking into the presidential palace in Cuba. They didn't treat things with kid gloves. They threw slot machines out the door and everything you see. It wasn't a friendly match. It was we are going to eliminate the people that stand in our way. And Mike Pence was the number one person who stands in the way.
And he's not there anymore, unfortunately, because he weakened his own position with his obsequious nature. And the fact that he's running for president sort of in the guise of a sensible Donald Trump. I'm going to do the same thing Donald Trump did, although I never understood what he was doing. And then I'm going to do some other stuff, but nothing like a real Republican. You can count on me to be a radical. I'm going to be a real changer of the times, and the future of America is all going to. And I'll finish draining the swamp. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. In fact, I'll have it done this weekend. There's a swamp drainer right there in Bethesda, Maryland. It was so close. He was there the whole time. We never called him.
They could have just brought it right down and
drained the damn swamp.
And drained. Well, it'll be tomorrow. Should be a circus. I don't know if they're going to arraign him by Zoom. I think they have that option, or if he's going to show up.
It's going to make him arrive. He's got a show.
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard one way or the other yet. I've actually at some point last night stopped listening to all of the stuff because
you have to.
It gets so repetitive. And even if you go, like I used to fight it by going to different news outlets just to get different voices.
Right.
And it's just such an overwhelming story that the only way you can get away from it is to either put a movie on or to go to YouTube and start watching car videos or some kind of video, something.
Superman
old TV shows, Burns and Allen.
You bet your life.
Now, I wanted to get to something else that happened yesterday and kind of got lost in all of the actually it happened this morning, but it's been kind of lost. The whole thing has been lost in this Trump controversy, and that is the scumbag that walked into the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh on a Saturday morning in October and killed 11 people who was doing nothing but sitting there and praying and going to their church. That's all they were doing. They weren't planning anything. They weren't plotting anything. They weren't doing anything but doing their Saturday morning prayers. And this clown decides to walk in and start shooting them.
And then he lived in Pittsburgh when that happened, not far from the site.
And I was in Pittsburgh when that happened that morning. I remember I was on the phone with my friend, and as soon as I got off the phone, I looked at the TV and I saw that the news had cut in to the regular Saturday morning cartoon program that I watch. Whatever it is. And sure enough, it was this unbelievable tragedy, horror that you just never think will happen anywhere near you. And here it was going on basically 2 miles from where I was.
Another good example of the world changing into a place where anti-Semitism and any solution that you might come up with to end the life of a Jew would be considered Trumpish, very Trumpish approach.
Well, yeah, because he's validated these people.
He's encouraged them.
He said they're nice people.
Call them great citizens, people who contribute to the spectacle of the grand American experience. People who are willing to kill a Jew, not just say ugly things about them. People who are willing to enter a place of worship where everybody's over 65.
And so this guy, I'm never going to mention his name because it disgusts me. From the South Hills in Pittsburgh, was found guilty a couple of weeks ago, and this morning the judge and the jury have sentenced him to death.
Death by what?
I don't know. I think it's lethal injection in in Pennsylvania.
Can't they just give him some pain thinner? Would that be a lethal injection?
Well, I mean, this guy will probably kill himself. Uh, the defense people have tried to paint him as somebody with um, schizophrenic and delusions, mentally ill, in other words, and it's it's just what I do hope with this is that I hope they put this guy's execution on TV.
Ooh.
I'm not an advocate, or I am an advocate, I should say. I'm not against the death penalty. I think there are some people who do things that are so horrible that they don't deserve to be a part of our society anymore. That there's no place for them. I think it's in very rare cases, but I think there's a place for it.
Well, it's just that it gets implemented to the lower classes
Right,
in greater regularity. The problem being that a good lawyer can prevent a bad criminal from facing the death penalty,
right,
and a public defender a year out of law school might have a more difficult time in giving their client the best defense, including keeping them out of the opportunity to be charged with the death penalty. But otherwise, I know what you're saying, Ben. And depending on the ugliness and viciousness and terribleness of the crime, it seems that the death penalty should always be there. Not in California. It's not even an option
no,
here.
no,
But in other states, and the people who fight against the death penalty always have the stories of the guys who were executed as innocent men.
right. And I realize that, and I understand that, and I can't say that I disagree with that.
Well, that's why it's such a complicated juggling
Right.
match.
But I think there are certain people it's beyond the shadow of a doubt. There are certain people, like when you catch a guy in the synagogue with the rifle, with the AR-15 in his hands, and it's smoking, and his hands have gunpowder burns on them, and these people are lying there bleeding to death. I mean, that's a pretty good case right there.
And he was doing it. His twisted reason for being this angel of death was that he thought that the Jews were helping immigrants
Right.
find their way into the country so that they could replace him and
Gee,
outvote
and I
him.
wonder who
Where did they
who
get that idea?
got, how he got that idea. I wonder where that came from.
Came from the man at the top.
So I just think that I know it won't stop it. I know that there'll be other, and I know that this one hits me particularly hard because I know that synagogue. I actually knew somebody who was related to somebody who was killed. Worked with them at a matter of fact. Your daughter knows them too. It was a salesperson at KDKA,
Mm-hmm.
and I just it just ripped my heart apart that night. I remember that night going down to they had a rally. Again, it wasn't a rally; it was a gathering of people who just were feeling pretty much the same way. That how could something like this happen in this community? And Pittsburgh is a very tightly knit community. For all the people that have left, there are two people who still stayed there
Oh
and
yeah, I can see that.
stayed in the city and grew up there and know each other. And it seemed like everybody knew somebody who was killed in this thing. One of my best friends is a guy that was just here this weekend, strangely enough, my friend Al Scheimer. and his lovely wife, and they were here this weekend. And it's we didn't talk much about it, but I remember the day it happened. I called Al up and I said, "Are you okay?" Because again, everybody knows everybody. People, it's a city, but it's a small town.
Everybody knows Franco Harris, and not as a football player. They know him. He's right over there.
Yeah, he shows up at things. Everybody knows uh, Charlie. Everybody knows Ben Roethlisberger. Everybody knows Clint Hurdle. The managers of they're part of the community. It's not such a big city that people don't shop in the same places, go to the gas stations. It's strangely like Seattle in that people in Pittsburgh tend to not show off their money. They tend to, they don't go out and buy big luxury cars for the most part. You don't see a lot of Rolls Royces. You don't see a lot. I mean, there's people there with tons of money. It's just not one of. It's like Seattle. It's not one of those places where people show it off.
Plus, they have a survivor mentality that you have to admire.
Yeah, yeah. It's really when you talk about cities that know how to survive, Pittsburgh is right at the top of the list. It
I
was it
just
was a
recently
great experience
saw
to be
recently
there.
saw the Anthony Bourdain Pittsburgh episode, and it was a lot of fun because
Yeah,
he played bocce with the old guys. He didn't hang out with the new people. He hung out with the old Pittsburgh,
right. He went
the
out.
old
He
line.
went out to Bloomfield and hung out with the Italian crowd out there.
Yeah, yes, played bocce with them.
Yeah, and so I guess what I'm trying to say here is I'm glad that they gave this guy the death penalty. I don't feel closure about it because of all the lives that were lost.
Yeah.
I don't understand for the life of me why people feel like they have to go after Jewish people or black people or anybody for that matter. But why they have this mentality that you have to eliminate the Jews? I just I've never understood that. I mean, listen, do they are Jewish people um they own a lot of small businesses. They are adept at finances, maybe, but it's not like they're taking money from you.
No, when the white hate talkers tell you that the Jews are good with money, what they're saying is somehow they've got more than you do. You add 6 and 6, you get 12. The Jews add 6 and 6, they can get 14. It happens every time. No one knows how they do it. It's a secret thing they have. They've got money that used to be yours. Now it's theirs, and you didn't even miss it. That's who they are.
Well, my
And
my
it's a lie and a story on a
yeah,
story that won't ever go away.
my adopted brother was Jewish, and he was the worst person with money that I ever saw. As a matter of fact, I still in my wallet carry a check that he gave me back in 1983 or 82 for $20 that I couldn't cash.
You'll never cash it.
Yeah, I'll never be able to cash it.
And that's when $20 was real money.
And yeah, that's when $20 was $20.
There's a couple things that I wanted to mention in closing. I want to thank the Mariners for our outfielder, AJ Pollock. It's the second outfielder we had to buy from Seattle this year because the first guy we got from you got hit by a pitch and broke his arm. He's been out all season.
Right. Well, we're not using the outfielders. We really have gone away from using
We're abusing ours, so we need
outfielders up here.
thank you, AJ. I want to say goodbye to the Colorado Buffaloes, who were part of the Pac-12 for a little while, but they decided that if they were going to be mistreated by the people who didn't care if UCLA and USC were part of the Pac-12, that they were going to leave too, and they went back to the Big Eight. And the
So
Buffaloes
are we now the Pac? What are we going to be? The Pac?
You're the Pac-9 right now. You're the Pac-9 and falling. And they didn't even tell him. And the day they announced it was the day that the Pac-12 was supposed to announce their new television idea, because it was media day, and they didn't have an announcement about television. They said, what we're going to do is skip the announcement about television and just talk about media day, so the media day stays high on everyone's list. And that's when Colorado said, oh, by the way, we're out of here. And that's the shame, Vinny, because one, I saw a lot of bad football when my daughter and went to Colorado. The setting is absolutely pristine and beautiful. It's a great place to play football. The whole town gets involved, but it was the first year for prime time. He brought in players from all over the nation to play ball. Right. It was going to be a completely different. Colorado wasn't going to be at the bottom of the league anymore. Colorado had a new team. Colorado had a quarterback. They had a defense. They had a head coach that was on top of the world. They had players leaving their programs and coming to Colorado to play. And the Pac-12 said, you know, we're sort of interested in you. We know you're part of the league. We can't quite put our finger on why we should be trying to keep you here, but yeah, go Colorado, whoever you are. And they did go. They went right back to the Pac-8. And it's a ugly, uncontrolled side of college sports right now. Look at teams like Washington. Don't you think there are supporters for the Huskies that are saying, get out, go somewhere, join another league, be forceful?
Yeah, I think there are. I think there's several entities that want the Huskies to go somewhere else. Maybe follow UCLA. You know, who's going to get screwed out of this whole thing is probably Washington State, because they're not really big enough for. And schools like Washington State, not just
like Oregon State and Arizona State. Yeah.
Well, the schools that don't have population centers around them, that are basically nestled in small college towns. Yeah. Look, college football, college sports is out of control. It's nothing but a business that many people are getting rich off of. But is it costing parents any less to send their kids to school? No, is it costing? Yeah. Is there a mitigation of student loans by the colleges? Those are the people that should be, with all that money coming in from all of these different media companies. Those are the people that should be forgiving student loans.
Instead, they're taking all that money, and this is what it's about. It's about your package, your media deal, your radio rights, your television rights, and everything else that goes along with it. And that's how you make your money. And you don't share it with anybody. You put it in the bank, and the school says, this is money we earned by virtue of having a great football program. We committed to it. Now this is our payoff. And to get continued great students to play here at USC, we're going to have to pay a few of them. Not all. There'll be some that we'll screw over, and they'll have to play for nothing. But there's going to be quarterbacks coming through here that are going to be paid rather well when all is said and done. And that's all that we care about, the media deal. We can't do it ourselves, so we have to sell our product to the people who broadcast it, and that's how we're going to put this thing on wheels.
And on top of it, to add insult to injury, we're going to take guys like Tommy Tuberville, and we're going to make millionaires out of them. We're going to pay Tommy Tuberville enough money, $2 million, $3 million, $6 million a year, so that he can go run for Senate, so that he can go take I mean, it's we're going to take the dumbest people we can find, and we're going to make them college coaches, because it's not about the kids, it's about making money.
Used to be about the kids.
Revenue generation for the college.
Absolutely. Or else you're out of football. There are going to be schools. What about Cal and Stanford? It's a good example. They're part of their longtime fixtures of the Pac-10 and the Pac-12. Rarely are they at the top of the action. They still send players to the NFL. Aaron Rodgers went to Cal.
And coaches.
And what's going to happen to those mid-level schools and not just in the Pac-12, but at all the divisional conferences across the country. They're going to be right on the edge. They're going to be trying to play with the big boys. Cal is going to try to put together a team that can beat USC, but they can't. They haven't got the horses. They haven't got the reputation. They haven't got kids wanting to come to Cal. They're having kids who will go to Cal because they couldn't get anywhere else in the conference. And that puts them in a position where they're not really a winning school. They're just a participating school. They're spending the money and they're part of the grind, but they're not fooling anyone into think they're going to be winning games.
Well, again, if we lived in a country where we were concerned about educational abuse, this would be top of mind. If we weren't worried about putting away Joe Biden's son and our ex-president and so many other things that are going on, maybe we would have time to look at something like this. Congress would have time to look at something like this and say, "Wait a minute, hold on. We need to investigate and come up with some rules because we've left these people to their own devices. We've had this NCAA, and they don't seem to be doing anything about it. As a matter of fact,
No.
they're sharing in the booty."
That was the first thing the NCAA said. How do we get our cut? Okay, we're going to start paying everyone. That means you have to pay us some more. Yeah, that's the whole idea. Yeah, that's
And
the ticket.
and again, kids who want to school, young people who want to go to school. And listen, I'm here to tell you that I think college is way overrated. To be honest with you, I'm one of those people that say, go find yourself a trade school. Go find yourself a school where you learn how to fix a car, or you learn how to. It may not be as glamorous as a stockbroker, but you're going to be working.
And who says the stockbrokers are smart? They know their business, but do they know anything else?
Right.
Have they got any level of general education that reflects the university they went to?
I can
Not
get you a
always.
whole bunch of stockbrokers. Try to find yourself a couple of contractors.
That you can
Try to
trust.
find yourself some people with enough common sense. Again, I think college is all fine and well and dandy, but I'm I'm one of those people that think that, hey, you know what? We should also be sending people to school to learn how to do things with their hands, to learn how to be craftsmen, to learn how to be mechanics, and to learn how to be construction people, and lower level engineers and people that work for a living. Everybody can't be a lawyer. Everybody can't be a financial whiz.
Two
And
other things, Vinny, you're right about that. Two other things that I wanted to say because I know we're getting to the end. That well, we missed Pee Wee Herman's death, so bye bye Pee
yeah,
Wee. And that
yeah.
and
Bye bye, Pee Wee. I was never as into Pee Wee as many were. Um, As a matter of fact, I was introduced into Pee Wee in what was it? Up with Smoke,
mm-hmm.
where he played the
Yeah,
waiter in the Chinese restaurant.
yeah.
Yeah,
I liked his television show, but he
yeah.
didn't do,
I thought it was okay.
he didn't do that for very long. Anyway, he passed due to cancer, and cancer took one of our friends from the Bay Area this week. Scoop Nisker has died.
No.
Yeah, Wes Nisker has died of a cancer fight that he had for the last year. And I got that message yesterday from Bob Simmons. So adios, Pee Wee, and adios, Scoop Nisker, who said, if you don't like the news,
Go out and make some of your own.
pretty a great sign out and completely original.
Scoop, I mean, I met Scoop a number of times, but I worked with him for one day over at KFOG, and he was, he was like Dave McQueen. He was an iconic news guy.
Yes.
Leftist is all hell. Uh,
Buddhist is all hell.
yeah, and but gave you the story, gave it to you straight, and was was not cut out to be. And I know that McQueen later worked at KCB. I once asked Marshall Phillips, who's another guy that we both worked with. I remember I
Mhm.
was driving in a car with Marshall once, and Marshall had intelligent as all hell. Um, you know, great writing skills, uh, great voice, great on-air presence. Who didn't love Marshall, or who doesn't love Marshall?
I can't think that there's much of a list there.
Yeah. And I remember driving with him once we were going somewhere up in Marin County. I said, "How come you're not working at KGO or KCBS or I mean you have all of the equipment to be a news. He was also a good-looking guy,
Mhm.
so he had the ability to go sit and do TV if he wanted to. And Marshall used to like to take a drink now and then. Um, I say used to like he's gone. I don't think he is. I think he's still with us. But he said, you, when you're into rock and roll, when you're into this particular type of lifestyle, you can never work at one of those stations. He says it's too corporate, it's too structured, it's too whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it was always those words always rung true to me when I went to Cairo and when I went to uh, uh, KDKA and those different places. That one line, that one explanation he gave me always stuck in my head. And it taught me a little bit about the difference between the corporate news structure and being a rock and roll, being a Joe Rogelski. Being a guy that works at a rock and roll station, has worked at a rock and roll station. You don't make as much money, but you sure have a whole lot of fun.
It's a the jobs couldn't be more different. The news is the same. Obviously, we all know that. There's only so many origins of the news. There's only so many places you can get it. But the delivery or the aspect of putting it together and the means by which you'd put it together uh, seem really overstructured when you first get there. And then after you've been there 2 weeks, you go, this is never going to change, is it? This is just what we do every day. We have 18 slots and we fill them, and we'll never get to the fifth story because the spot load's too high. And you got to get to the most important thing is not the news. It's traffic, because if you miss
Traffic and
traffic,
weather.
if you screw up traffic, you can't get to the traffic for the next time on the fives because you got to it on the sixes instead of the fives. You're a minute late for everything you're doing. Oh God, what a nightmare!
Oh, it's all
Uh,
about the clock. Yeah, you
it's the
can't be
clock.
off of the clock.
It's the clock.
Well, that's sad about Scoop. Scoop was, like I said, good guy. I always admired him.
Apparently,
Um,
it was Jerry Rubin who gave him the nickname Scoop.
was it really?
Yeah.
He That morning show that he did on K Fog with Dung, and before that, I believe he did it with the guy who was there before Dung. What's his name? It's Lee Baby Sims.
Lee Baby Sims. God, I remember him from KGB in San Diego.
Lee Baby Sims.
And also, he was here in LA on KISS AM and FM before it went urban pop or whatever you want to call it now. It was more hits radio. Lee Baby Sims. Oh, I know Lee Baby.
Yeah, Lee Baby. He did mornings at K Fog before Dave Logan brought in M Dung from Detroit, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And
That sounds right.
yeah, I think it was Detroit. And later on, I worked with M at KDK. No, K. I don't know the newer
KDBK.
iteration of 98.9. They didn't
KDBK.
even name. KDBK.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't even have a name for the station. We just just had call letters.
The station. Well, I never got to KFOG. I would always love to have worked there. I never got to KFOG, but I got to KCBS twice, and that's pretty good odds. And I don't know if I would have traded one for the other. I just can't say.
I mean, I did that one day stint there, and listen, I was lucky enough to work at KRQR.
That
You
was a
know,
good gig.
and that was a good gig. I loved doing it. I loved. I mean, I read the handwriting on the wall that being a rock and roll music DJ had a limited, you know, limited for some people, probably me, a limited run. But if you could talk and you had a good line of crap, you could probably figure out a way to be around for a long time.
It was tough. I was a rock and roll DJ, and then I became a rock and roll news guy. And then whatever you were, that's the tag they stuck on you. How can you do sports? You're doing news. How can you do news? You're doing rock and roll. How can you
Right.
do music if you did? It was, and that's the view within the industry, not somebody who's saying, "Oh, that must
Well,
be crazy going from one to the other like that." No, that's within the industry. Those prejudices exist.
yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when Chris Olinger put me on the air doing overnights at Cairo. Now my brand was sports.
Right.
Everybody knew me from KJR. And when I started doing the overnights and did I mean, I can't general talk. I can't tell you how many people called up and said, "Oh, stick to sports. You don't know what you're talking about." But I came up with and it was funny because it had always been my dream. You talk about what you want to do in radio. It was always my dream to do an overnight show from midnight to 5 a.m. or midnight to 4 a.m. in San Francisco to play music and talk to people, take phone calls, kind of be the midnight beat of the city.
I like that. Yeah,
And there was only two
it's so
cities you
tempting.
could really do it in, or three. Los Angeles, San Francisco, or New York,
Yeah,
because you had to have the interesting enough characters,
you had to have the crazy culture. You had
right,
to have
put
enough of it.
around you to be able to make it work.
Here in LA, the greatest thing that's going on right now is the Mojave Desert is on fire. And
It's not good.
what's burning right now are the Joshua trees, which
Oh,
they have said will never come back. They don't regenerate after a fire. When they're gone, they're gone. And all the animals that live there, they say this is going to be a multi-generational die-off of the Mojave Desert, led by one, the trees are gone, the giant cacti, and all the animals that were supported by the desert are expected to be reduced by a drastic number. So that's a downer. That happened.
no such thing as global warming, though, or climate change, is there?
If you don't see that as a hoax, Vinny, I don't know what you're paying attention to. And by the way, number one on my list, and I had it here, and I haven't mentioned it twice. The ice in Antarctica, we don't ever go there. We used to do promotions down there. Grab
Yeah,
your grab
I
your friend and
totally,
meet us. Remember, grab a friend to get some grub and meet us in Antarctica. Remember those promotions we used to
yeah,
do?
that and spend the night with Vinnie in an igloo.
Well, we don't do those anymore. And the reason that there's no ice left down there is so you can just drive right up in a 14-foot sailboat that you can rent somewhere in Chile and just go to Antarctica. It's accessible like never before. And it's because they used to have ice down there, but not so much anymore. It's the opposite of the Mojave Desert. Mojave Desert's on fire. Antarctica is on
Water
on water. It's turned into a place that doesn't look even familiar to the people who have studied it. So
used to be on ice. Now it's on water. Yeah, no. Listen, if the temperature off the coast of Florida It's
90.
101, 102 degrees in the water. What do you think it's going? You think it's not going to stretch down to Antarctica?
And it's made the sharks mad. Did you see that shark attacking a boat? It was like 10 foot or a 12 foot mako, no, bull shark, and it
Uh,
just was biting the propellers and banging into the side. They weren't chumming, they weren't fishing, they weren't after a shark. They hadn't said anything about his mother, and he just picked him out of the group and damaged the hell out of the boat. Just beat holes in it, didn't sink it, but disabled it. And they figured that the reason is it was just so hot, the shark went over the top. He lost his composure.
yeah, it's listen, when it heats up, people get crazy.
Yeah, even sharks, even bull sharks.
Oh, Mikey, yeah, it's a crazy. You know what? As John Hyatt once said, it's a crazy, mixed up world.
Didn't Groucho Marx say that?
I think he might have. Yes, I think he. I think he may have. All right. Well, the one thing I did want to mention that if you are on Spotify, if you participate in Spotify, if you Google or you search out Drive Time Radio Saturday Morning Cartoon, CARTUNE, you will find that I have assembled a list of our Saturday morning cartoon tunes. And they run the gamut from
Including Rock and Roll High by the Knights or whatever it's called.
right, rock and roll high. We have you'd be surprised that we even have Walter Brennan singing a car song in there somewhere.
Wait a minute. What did Walter Brennan ever do to a car song that I didn't know about?
He sang a song about his Irish daunting car.
I don't know what that is.
Well, it makes the list.
Okay.
So I'll put it up on our socials, but now you can. So far, we have about 3 hours and change of tunes up there. I'll put them up, post them up on our socials. So if you want to go and enjoy the cartoons without the Vinnie, you can do that. And there's some interesting hits from a lot of different people on that.
Anybody do a song about a Packard? A Packard?
Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to. I have now some of the songs that we've used. I can't get because they're not on Spotify. I've run into a few songs like that, and I don't know if there's a way you can upload them onto the list or something like that. There's a great song about the Holden from Australia. Me and my Holden. I'm holding you in my Holden. But what is on there is They Might Be Giants have done a song that was very popular when I was growing up in New York City. Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the block. Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the block. Keep your eyes to look out. Keep your ears to hear honk honk. Walk up to the corner when the coast is clear and wait until you see the light turn green.
They Might Be Giants have re-recorded that. They've
They
covered
Might Be
that.
Giants have re-recorded it, so you'll find that on there, which was I think a song that and buckle up for safety, which was actually Buckle Down Woonsaki,
Oh God, yeah.
which was a song that I was asked about on Name That Tune when I was a contestant on Name That Tune.
Whoa. A college football rah-rah song.
College football rah-rah song. And
That's back when they didn't pay the players.
right. Which, and that they were in the what were they in the Big Ten, I guess.
I don't know. Nothing makes sense to me anymore. Anyway, I wish primetime a great season. I wish they were in the Pac-12 so I could see more games.
Yeah, it's well, we'll talk more about the college football season coming up. It's going to be
It's almost football time, Vin.
I know the Seahawks are in. They are full tilt boogie into their training camp. I'm hoping to get over there at some point in the not too distant future, and maybe even get a player to come on with us and talk a little bit. I'd like to, talk a little bit more. I think the Seahawks. Well, I'm not sold on Geno Smith, but people that seem to know a lot more about the game than I do seem to like him.
Well, just think how fast things change. Consider the Mets pitching staff, for instance. One day,
Knew you'd bring it up.
one day they got a couple guys. Next day they don't have a couple guys.
I knew I
That's
wasn't
baseball.
getting out of here alive. I knew that I wasn't getting out of here without. I think I'm more upset about the loss of Scherzer than I am Verlander. I like Scherzer. I liked his attitude. I liked, he just reminded me of an old time gritty ass ball player.
Warren Spahn is who it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yep. That's exactly. I'm not sure, but I think he actually wore Warren Spahn's number. Didn't Spahn wear 21?
Oh, wow. I should know that. I'm pretty good on numbers.
Yeah, I'm going to look it real quick, but I'm pretty sure that Warren Spahn.
I saw Warren Spahn come to San Francisco, pitch a complete game, and beat the Giants with a home run to right field. That was Warren Spahn. If you give him an inch, that sucker would just leave you in the dust. What are we worried about with Warren Spahn? He's an old man. That's right, and he's crafty as can be.
I remember the Mets got him in. The Mets got him in '65.
Pitched a complete game and hit a home run is what he did, and he beat you guys.
And he did, in fact, wear 21.
Okay.
He initially, when he was up with the Braves the first time in '42, he wore number 16. But from then on, when he played with the Boston Braves, the Milwaukee Braves, the New York Mets in 1965, and the 1965 San Francisco Giants,
yep, he
wore number 21. So, good observation with Scherzer.
Yeah.
Good observation. Did you know that, or was that just? I wonder if Scherzer even knew it. I'm sure he did.
Just, I was lucky enough to see Spahn play, and he was a happy warrior. He really enjoyed going out there, it seemed to me. Scherzer is a little more concerned about life, but it's the same attitude on the mound. I'm going to figure out a way to beat you. How? Well, I'm just going to throw it where you can't hit it. It's pretty simple. And if you do hit it, it's not going to be a double.
In 21 years, of a major league career, Warren Spahn made the All-Star squad 17 times. He owned the ERA title 3 times. He won the Cy Young, pitched in the '57 World Series, and was part of one of the famous sayings in baseball history.
Please, I'll leave it to you.
Spawn insane and pray for rain.
We only got 2 guys over here.
That was in '57, wasn't it? Yeah, I think that was '57. Is they had 2 guys, but those 2 guys took the Braves to the World Series.
Well, look at it this way. You got 2 spots in your pitching staff that should be filled by some prospects from AAA that are going to brighten the end of your season. That are going to show you they got the talent. They deserve your attention and your confidence.
Warren pitched 5,243 innings.
Wow.
In 16 years. 363 and 245.
Really remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are just.
And how many surgeries did he have on that elbow, arm, and bicep?
Well, in those days, the surgeries all happened in the OS. They threw that stuff.
Yeah.
They just they give the guy some painkillers or whatever they had, shot him up with cortisone, and they sent him back out there to pitch.
We got a game to win here.
And these guys, they didn't pitch 4 innings or go to a 100 pitch count.
No, nobody was counting pitches. What are you counting the pitches for? Do something useful. Go get me a sandwich.
Could you imagine Warren Spahn when they say, well, we're taking this guy out of the game because he's reached his 120 pitch count. I mean, my God.
And he had a quick sort of frantic windup the same way that Scherzer did. Scherzer has a quick windup. It's energetic propulsion of the ball.
Yeah, he is. I mean, that's a great comparison. I mean, he won. Good God. He where's his complete games? 25, 22, 25, 26, 19, 24, 23, 16, 20, 18, 23, 21, 18, 21, 22, 22 in 1963.
It's like he was really one of those guys who just plain showed up. He just showed up.
42 years old. He won 23 and 7 in 1963 and had 22 complete games at 42 years old.
He was just getting the hang of it, Vin. He was just coming to the time of his career where he thought he knew what he was doing.
And then he went to the Mets in 1965, where he figured out how to be 4-12 in 20 games. But still had where's his complete? Only had 5 complete games that year. Then he spent the final part of it with the Giants, where he went 3-4.
And that was
Yeah,
it.
he was. I remember when the Mets got him. He was, it was because I think he was kind of. I'm trying to think now. They had some other pitchers that were, kind of Dodger and Giant, way beyond their career. But when Spahn, he was only a year off of 23 wins in 65. He had gone 6-13 in 64, but I think he was hurt that year.
And the funny
He
thing
didn't
is,
make the All-Star game.
he sustained his career without a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He didn't have a
Yeah.
100-mile-an-hour fastball.
He was one of those guile guys. I mean, he was one of those guys that learned how to pitch, knew how to pitch early in his career, learned how to pitch later in his career.
Yeah.
And there's a difference in knowing and learning. And the pitchers that have long pages in the baseball reference easily go from knowing to learning. Quite a career. Warren Spahn, thank you, because I'm glad we took a look back at Warren. Was again one of those guys that I just he was like one of the first really legit guys that the Mets had.
Type of player my father would say, look at this fella. He stands there like a ball player.
Well, he looked it. I mean, even his face looked like he was a ball player.
Yeah, it was craggy.
Yeah, he was. And Scherzer has that same face, has that same look to him.
And he's got the mad dog look because it's personal with Scherzer. I don't know what the results will be, but I know that he's into it.
And I think it's sad that the Mets, Verlander. I think Verlander's kind of close to the end. I think Scherzer's one of those guys that could guile out 4 more years easy.
Well, I remember Peter Gammons told me it's the only time we had dinner together at ESPN one night. And we were talking about pitching. And it was his conclusion that the actual arc of pitching a ball was so complicated that an inch on the withdrawal of the arm, an inch too high on the coming of the thing, an inch over here where you release the twist, an inch difference in your stride, an inch difference in where you set up on the rubber. All those inches for each pitch are variables. When the pitcher gets out of whack, 2 of those inches never add up anymore. And so he can't control the ball. And he said, so don't be so sure that you want to trade this guy or end his career, because he's just an inch away from getting it all together. And that's really all it is. It's a very difficult, complicated motion. And any variable in it, anytime you change something, even unwillingly or unknowingly, it changes the result. And what you thought was going to be a strike is a ball. And you can't figure it out because you're an inch off. And Some guys recover and regain their careers. Some guys don't, and with great talent, their inches never add up anymore. And somebody who's 6'7" and 300 pounds and should be pitching away the world can't throw a strike when he needs to, can't throw a strike when he has to. And that's the curse of pitching. It makes the pitcher look like he's a loser, when in reality, he's just dealing with a very complicated delivery system. And I always thought that was one of the smartest things that anybody in baseball ever told me.
Yeah, very astute observation. And also justification, and I've been somebody that said it too, what does the pitching coach do to earn his money? And I think that many times the pitching coach knows where that inch is.
Yeah.
And that's what gets these guys back on track is they know, they can look at somebody or look at videotape of somebody and tell you where the inch is. Now,
especially now, they say, when you were doing it, look at your delivery and look where you set up. Now you're not doing it, and you're almost there, but let's examine where you involuntarily change your delivery.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's fascinating because it really is. That's what that inch has kept how many people out of the major leagues have dispatched careers early because they couldn't find that one thing that would give him that inch back. No, that's a great observation. And Spawny, I think, knew
control. He can control his body. He controlled his body.
Yeah. Tom Seaver knew where those inches were. Gaylord Perry had figured out a way to get the inch back. There were some guys that did, they needed a little help finding that inch.
Gonna load it up. All right, Ben. I'm gonna let you go. See you for Freaky Friday.
I'll see you on Freaky Friday for Freaky Friday morning. If the Lord's will and the creek don't rise. And listen, baby, peace, love, and Manischewitz.
What a wine. See you.
See you, Mikey.